Two cities gain access to similar technology and try to attract comparable activities. One generates new firms, learning, and sustained growth. The other fails to create the same momentum. That contrast raises a central question: why do some cities keep innovating while others fall behind? Michael Storper searches for the answer through the relationship between economy and place. His approach rejects the idea that an economic activity works identically wherever it is located. Organizations operate within specific territories. Technologies develop through specific relationships. Learning also depends on proximity and institutions. According to Storper, urban economic trajectories diverge because these elements combine differently across places. Place is not a passive background. It participates in the creation of advantages that can support innovation and growth. The mechanism can be summarized through what Storper calls his holy trinity: organizations, technologies, and territories. Organizations assemble capacities and coordinate activities. Technologies transform what can be produced and how production can happen. Territories locate these relationships within specific contexts. No element works completely alone. A new technology needs organizations capable of developing, using, or adapting it. Those organizations operate in places containing particular institutions and relationships. Agglomeration also matters here. It means the spatial concentration of activities that makes connections between nearby actors easier. Yet Storper does not reduce regional advantage to physical proximity. Learning, institutions, and non-market relations help explain why some economic concentrations generate lasting capacities while others produce different outcomes. Imagine a first case. Several organizations connected to an innovative activity concentrate within one urban region. Proximity makes repeated contact easier and allows knowledge to circulate among actors. This does not mean every conversation automatically produces innovation. It means territory can create conditions where particular forms of learning occur more frequently. From Storper's perspective, agglomeration matters because economic activities are embedded in localized relationships. Our interpretation is that physical concentration becomes economically significant when actors can also learn and coordinate. Two places might contain similar firms and still produce different outcomes. The difference would not come only from counting organizations. We would need to examine how they interact, which technologies they use, and which territorial relationships turn proximity into advantage. A second case begins with a new technology that could be applied in several places. A simple explanation would say it moves toward the location offering lower costs. Storper complicates that picture. Technology does not travel through an empty economic space. It needs organizations, knowledge, institutions, and relationships capable of integrating it. One territory may have accumulated forms of learning that make adaptation easier. Another may possess similar resources but organize its relationships differently. This can be read as one reason regional trajectories diverge. Innovation does not emerge simply from possessing a technology. It also depends on how technology connects with organizations and territory. Geography returns to the economic explanation because capacities required for innovation can be rooted in relationships that are difficult to separate from place. The third case shows why Storper includes non-market relations. Imagine organizations that compete through markets but also learn through ties that are not simple buying and selling. Forms of trust, coordination, shared knowledge, or institutional interaction may connect them. The supplied material does not support describing a particular region or measuring these relationships. It does establish their conceptual importance. Non-market relations help explain advantages that an analysis based only on prices could overlook. Territory matters because some of these relationships form and reproduce through proximity and learning. From this perspective, a regional economy is more complex than a collection of firms. It contains institutions, practices, and relationships that connect economic activity with a specific social and spatial environment. A reasonable counterargument now appears. Technologies, capital, and organizations can move across space with increasing ease, so place might seem less important. If a firm can transfer knowledge and coordinate activity across distance, territorial advantages could appear less decisive. This objection deserves attention because it prevents us from treating proximity as an automatic explanation. Storper's approach responds differently. Economic networks can extend beyond a region while still depending on localized relationships. The mobility of a technology does not guarantee that every territory can absorb it in the same way. Nor does mobility eliminate institutions, learning, or non-market ties. The argument therefore does not claim that everything must remain local. It claims that territorial configurations still participate in creating and sustaining economic advantage. This perspective also changes how we understand urban growth. The supplied facts show Storper examining agglomeration, learning, institutions, and non-market relations to explain regional advantage. This can be read as a challenge to explanations that isolate one cause. Having firms is not enough. Having technology is not enough either. Even concentrated activity can produce different trajectories depending on the relationship supporting that concentration. My editorial reading is that this is the strength of the Holy Trinity. It forces us to keep asking about connections. Which organizations use a technology? How do they learn? Which institutions structure their relationships? Which territorial characteristics help sustain those capacities? Regional advantage then appears as a configuration. It is not a natural prize awarded to a city. It is built through economic, social, and spatial relationships that can evolve unevenly. Divergence between cities therefore becomes a question of trajectory. An earlier combination of organizations, technologies, and territory may favor particular forms of learning. Those forms of learning can reinforce existing capacities and influence later decisions. Another place may follow a different path because its relationships and institutions also differ. We should not turn this idea into an unavoidable destiny. The supplied material does not claim that a successful region will always remain successful. It also does not claim that a weaker region cannot change. What matters is that starting conditions and accumulated relationships matter. According to Storper, explaining sustained growth requires studying how concrete regional advantages are formed. Urban economies no longer resemble a race where every city begins from an equivalent position and responds in the same way. Return to the two cities from the opening. Both could access similar technology, yet their outcomes became different. The question is no longer simply which place possesses more capital or better tools. We ask how organizations, technologies, and territories connect. We also ask which forms of learning, institutions, and non-market relations sustain those connections. Storper's answer brings geography back into the center of economics. Innovation occurs in particular places because economic relationships also have a territorial dimension. Agglomeration may bring actors closer, but proximity alone does not guarantee advantage. My editorial conclusion is simple: when a city grows, we should focus less on an isolated recipe and more on the configuration making it work. That is where we can begin explaining why urban trajectories diverge.